I will just start. Give me a little background on yourself and how you got involved with Mangled Carpenter.
Yeah, when I was in junior high, Christopher, the bass player, and I were really into heavy Christian metal. Um, my parents brought me up listening to, rock and roll, Led Zeppelin, uh, Pink Floyd and stuff. And they also let us listen to like Larry Norman and Phil Kagi, however you say his name. But we were really into more bands like, eventually Deliverance and Tourniquet, Mortification and Vengeance. So, just like being kids playing air guitar, we just thought this would be cool if we could start a band. And we didn't have any instruments. My dad did get me an acoustic guitar, so I started jamming on that. And we kind of decided let's just try to make a band, and we'll just come up with a name. So we decided to make a list of names. I can't really remember all the names we listed. The one that sticks out is the one we used, but we wrote to the band members of Haven, and snail mailed us back within like a month or two, and they were like, yeah, man, this band title Mangled Carpenter sounds cool. And so we just were like, okay, yeah, we're gonna run with that. That was probably when we were in our junior or senior year in high school. Then eventually we moved to California, Redondo Beach area, to go to Sanctuary International with Pastor Bob, and we stayed in a place called the Beach House with about 13 other guys who moved out there. Some guys were from Sweden, Canada. Met a lot of cool dudes from bands from Tourniquet, Deliverance. Hung out with Victor Macias for a while. He was really cool. Chris Ness at the time from Precious Death was really cool. He goes by Christopher Neiswanger now. He's a pastor and a theologian. He was really cool to us and actually let us sing on the first Precious Death album. We sang background on King of Siam and Force Fed. And that was kind of our first dealings with the studio. We were like, this is cool. So we kind of kept going with the Mangled Carpenter idea, but nothing really transpired until about 2015 when we decided to record some demo songs on an old laptop, and just straight recording from my Digitech death metal pedal straight into a laptop, and so an old like microphone. It wasn't even, it was just kind of one of those handheld ones that come with like computers, and we're like, yeah, let's just do some brutal death metal stuff, and writing these, getting some stock beats and stuff. And then we kind of went our separate ways again for a while. Then fast forward again till 2020, when the pandemic hit and everyone was kind of had some downtime, and decided let's just do this for real. I got some production equipment, upgraded my studio, decided to focus on just doing like a brutal Mangled Carpenter album. And we wanted to do the album we wanted to hear when we were 16 years old, jamming out in our room. And I was even like to Christopher, I said, hey man, imagine if we went back in time and handed ourselves a CD that said, in 30 years you're going to release this, and we would have probably liked it and jammed to it. And I think that was the whole goal. So that's basically it.
All right. What sort of music do you listen to, and who's your favorite artist? If you were to have to pick one, or I guess a couple. I know a lot of people have trouble with that.
Yeah, it is a tough one. I love all sorts of music. I think, as far as Mangled Carpenter's influences, from the past, obviously we're really into Vengeance Rising and Mortification and things like that, Living Sacrifice. But in the secular realm, for me to kind of get a pulse on what's going on in the heavier realm of music, I really got into jamming to like Cephalic Carnage, Cattle Decapitation, Pig Destroyer, Worm Rot. There's like grindcore, and then there's death metal, and then we were like, there's death grind. So we'll have some influences of death metal, and then grindcore too. And So I really like all those bands. I also into classical music like Vivaldi, pop music sometimes. I even listen to like Lady Gaga sometimes. A big fan of Alicia Keys. Actually took a master class from her to prep for some music writing, and it was amazing how just the idea of certain type of artists, even no matter what creative field they're in, they kind of give you some inspiration, or that I should approach some music writing like this. And you know, other than that, I'd say as far as maybe Christian bands that I listen to now or faith-based bands, Becoming the Archetype, Broken Flesh, still like Anti-Demon, and gosh, I think, you know, Tourniquet stuff still pretty cool. So I listen to a lot of stuff, but my favorite band, usually I say Deftones, because they've been a huge inspiration to me since, you know, the 2000s. So they're still my favorite band, I think.
All right. Do you, I'm going to get a little off the beaten path now.
Okay.
Since we do movies, music, you know, more, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
entertainment. Do you
Right.
have a favorite superhero? And if so, why do you like them?
Yeah, I like a few different kinds of superheroes. I think Batman's still my favorite because I like the idea of his persona and the way that he actually said, you know, one of his quotes is that anybody can be a super, or anybody can be a hero, you know. And so it's like it doesn't need to be like a supernatural, you know, lasers from eyes or things like that. So I really like Batman, and I also like Beast from X-Men. I always thought he was cool because he was a scientist and an intellectual, and that kind of spoke to me at a young age, interested in different things like science, physics, philosophy, theology, things like that. So those would be my my favorites. I like Doctor Strange and Dr. Manhattan too. Something to do with science and doctors, I guess.
Do you have a specific favorite superhero movie?
Uh, I would say that I currently my favorite superhero movie would be Doctor Strange, the first one. I'm actually excited to see the second one, see how they approach it, since they had the same director that was involved with the first one, and then he ended up being replaced. And so we'll see how the new one goes. I think he was replaced with the dude that did uh
Evil Dead.
Evil Dead and one of the one of the Spider-Man entries. Yeah.
He
So
did the first three original ones.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Sam Raimi.
Sam. Yeah, Raimi.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually I liked Drag Me to Hell was interesting as one of his most recent you know, horror ones. There's some interesting aspects to that one that I thought too. So it'll be neat to see what he does. I mean, I actually they've been pitching this new Doctor Strange as a horror, a sci-fi, you know, kind of Superman horror film. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there.
Right. Yeah, definitely interested in that. Um, if you had to choose one movie or TV series to watch, what would it be? Like kind of a desert island thing.
Yeah, I would go with Mad Men for my TV series, because I just really like the aesthetics and the whole advertising agency and things like that, and the characters were written really well, and it's just something that spoke to me. As far as a movie, I like Donnie Darko. That's my favorite. It's been my favorite for a long time, since it came out, even before anybody was really into it, and it was a cult hit. It still kind of is, but more people know about it now. So I love the idea of the time travel and trying to figure out how to save somebody you care about, or, you know, maybe it's even back to that whole superhero things is, you know, I think that was actually something in the movie, yeah, where she Donnie Darko's girlfriend said, "What kind of name is Donnie Darko? Are you a superhero or something?" And he goes, "Maybe I am." Something like that. I always thought that was kind of cool. So he sort of was a hero.
So expand a little bit about why you like Mad Men.
Yeah, I think that when I was younger, I guess 20 years ago, so that's still younger. I was into graphic design, and I had no graphic design schooling or anything like that. I just was self-taught. And in Mad Men, Don Draper, the main character, was like a salesman. He sold fur coats and ran into a guy from an advertising agency, and he was selling the coats, and the dude was impressed at how well he sold and his demeanor and stuff. And he took a meeting with the guy. It was kind of I think they just went out to a bite to eat and probably drank a little too much. And so I remember that Don Draper in the beginning, he showed up at this advertising agency with a suit on, and he runs into this guy and he says, yeah, so when do I, where do I go? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you hired me. And the dude's like, no, I didn't hire you. I don't remember that at all. He's like, oh yeah, we were having some drinks and you told me to be in on Monday. And and his name was Roger Sterling. And he says, oh man, I hate when I do that. All right, come on upstairs. And throughout the whole thing, he kind of like builds himself up to be one of the top executives of advertising agency, and completely respected in the industry. And I really felt that spoke to me, because he was an art director and I was a graphic designer, and I worked my way up to become a graphic designer. When I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, I was actually staying at Pastor Bob's for a while, Pastor Bob Beeman from Sanctuary. And I remember Doug Van Pelt was coming over to stay for the weekend to interview Disciple for the Heaven's Metal HM magazine. And I remember thinking that maybe I could get this guy to see my graphic design. So I mocked up a cover of a magazine that had Marilyn Manson on it, and some other things. I just said, Sanctuary magazine, Marilyn Manson and what he thinks about God and things like that, and put it in the room that Doug was going to stay in. And I don't know if he ever saw it or not. So, because I never heard anything about it. But I had, but I thought that was worth a try, and I really wanted to get into the graphic design of heavy music. And so one of my friends worked for Rugged Records, and they had Disciple at the time, and I was talking to him about graphic design and if they were looking for a designer, and he said, just get me a portfolio of your designs. So I did that, and he got it to the record label president, Michael Betts. And he initially didn't like the idea because I had a logo for my design company called Skull Hill Creations, and he didn't like the skulls that were in the hill with the cross, and it was too heavy for him, or too, I don't know if he thought it was evil or what. He just said he didn't like skulls. And I'm like, man, I love skulls. It's like one of my favorite things. And I'm like, a heavy metal record label that doesn't like edgy stuff like skulls? Oh well. So then after a while, I had heard back from Mike, who actually worked for Rugged Records, and he said they were looking for a part-time web designer. So I also was learning web design at the same time. This is before most people were they were trying to learn web stuff, and I always thought it myself as kind of in the middle of both the tech side and the creative side, because I did graphic design, I also did web stuff, and it was really hard for people to find one or the other. Either you were a graphics guy that knew graphics, or you were a web guy that knew programming. But I had gotten a program and learned it called Dreamweaver from Adobe, where you could kind of design the graphics and move it around and create a cool looking website too. So I designed the Rugged Records website. I was only working part-time, and then they were also owned by then they turned into Servant Music Group, and there was a couple offshoot labels. One was Audio X, was a subgenre, and I just they started getting more work in, and I was talking with the guy who did Wyrick, Travis Wyrick, and he wanted a cool cover that was more like Nine Inch Nails, because he did industrial stuff and Nine Inch Nails was really big. And so I was like, let me come up with a mock cover for you and let's talk about some ideas. And so I designed it, and he was like, man, I love this. I want this for my cover. And so he basically approached Michael from the president of Rugged Records, and he said, man, I want this for my cover. And he's like, well, we hired him for web stuff, but I guess, we can use the cover and just have our other guy, who they actually used freelance from Knoxville, and we were in Nashville. And so actually what happened was it became more, uh, Christian site called burnmycd.com. And we kind of were like thinking, people will buy these, this music and we could put it on CDs for them. They could pick from whatever bands we have. And actually they had Bride at the time and Disciple, and it didn't really take off, but it was kind of forward thinking, because obviously MP3s and, digital stuff really took off. So, and then I went from part-time to full-time and started designing graphics for full-time there. And then I ended up going to Provident Music, where they had Essential Records that had like Third Day, Plum,
Hey,
Jars of Clay.
Hold up real quick.
Okay.
You went out. You faded out for like 30 seconds.
Okay.
Between the Wyrick and the MP3 deal.
Okay.
So if you want to backtrack just a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. I started, I was talking with Travis Wyrick of Wyrick. It was an industrial group, and he's now a producer, but he wanted to have a cool cover that was similar to Nine Inch Nails, because he was industrial. And so I designed a cover for him, just a mock cover, and he really liked it. And he was like, let's go with that. I'm going to tell Michael, the president of Rugged Records, that this is what I want. And that kind of got my foot in the door for graphic design at Rugged Records instead of just web design. And I went on there to design Disciples by God CD and a couple other CDs. There was a Praise and Worship CD, and I think Everybody Duck was a band we had too, and there was some strange different bands, but so that's how I got my foot in the door in graphic design. And I worked my way up there and started getting a portfolio, and then ended up landing a job at Provident Music, Essential Records, Reunion Records, designed things. Well, that we had like Third Day, Jars of Clay, Michael W. Smith, Plum, Katy Perry before she was Katy Perry, when she was Katie Hudson. And and then after that, I actually worked my way up and got another job at the United Methodist Publishing House as a graphic designer, and I worked there for a couple years and did mostly youth, more edgy stuff. Most of these places actually hired me to be the think outside the box wow factor. And what was interesting, and kind of still is in industries, is they think that they want that. You'll bring all these things out of the box that are different, and then they always seem to kind of go back with more of a kind of a basic. Like I remember we were working on Third Day at Reunion, or no, they were on Essential, and we all do mock-up covers, and we had like 4 designers, and literally they would have us do sometimes 10 to 20 mock-ups each for one album. So you could have 40 to 80 covers, and my covers were always a little different out of the box, and actually landed the Third Day cover because I picked an image that they really liked, but I had some fades, and I kind of did an upside down graphic, and ended up getting a single cover that they released. They used that, but they tended to just always default to the graphic designer on the team that kind of went really safe. And so they took my idea and they let him add the title, and he got the title for that and the credit inside. And then there was a Michael W. Smith album cover I designed, and he changed the typeface, and he got the credit in the album on it, and it actually won a Dove Award that year. So I was like, oh man, but that's just how it goes. It was kind of a team effort. So but that's why I like Mad Men, because I kind of felt like I related to that character working his way up and through an industry, and it's proof that it can be done. So
awesome. Okay. We already have addressed kind of the fact that, well, actually we really didn't. You consider yourself a spiritual person, a religious, and Mangled Carpenter is obviously a Christian band, or it's faith-based, as people will say now. how does your beliefs affect your career choices, even, inside of music and outside of the music industry as well?
I think that I really approach things kind of like, I've been around Christians and non-Christians like my whole life. And I mean, a lot of us have, but I mean, growing up and raised in a Christian home, and I kind of got involved in Christian ministries over the years. Um, but I found that, just being genuine and authentic, people really are open to just getting to know you. I mean, a lot of people have spirituality, or they believe they, they go to church, or they knew someone that went to church, or they grew up in the church and they despise the church. There's, a lot of people that I'm still friends with that actually used to be believers, and they're not anymore. And I've went through my phases in life where I was just like not sure exactly how much sense all this made, or ask questions. And we should ask questions. The stuff that I was brought up believing, why is this true? Do I just believe this because I was told it when I was a kid? Or how, as an adult now, can I apply this to my life that makes sense? And so I think the best approach for me has always been a spiritual aspect. I mean, church, church is great. People should go and, be in fellowship. And, I do church a lot of times. I mean, even before the pandemic, I do like, uh, church, online. A lot of times I tune into mass programs, or, watch somebody, do a church service. My brother, Christopher, he up the bass player, he up in Connecticut. I'm in Monterey, California. So we kind of live 3,000 miles away. So, but he, his church that he goes to does online services, and I've tuned into those too. But, I think that as far as how it affects, my approach is, I just, I stay away from anything that's openly blasphemous against God. I mean, I don't really think that that's, really kosher to be into. But I think that there's a lot of Christians and believers in every, secular entertainment industry, to music, to movies, and I think that if we just always go forward and with the fruits of the spirit, and I think that that's what we're supposed to do, is lead by example and be, good people. And people have always respected that. Even when I was younger, they found out I was a Christian, they never thought of me as, like, a lot of times people think, oh, is this person a basket case? Is he one of these, I call it Christianese, people that kind of talk this basic kind of Christianity, and everyone's heard it. I mean, people that aren't Christians, they know the message. So they don't really like to be preached to, or try to, we're supposed to, be examples of Christ. And I think that that's probably why the terminology of Christianity got soiled over the years. And because these Christian people that claim to be Christian don't really always act Christian. And nobody's perfect, but you should try to at least be, an example, and try to, have compassion for people, and lead in as an example, and try to uplift people instead of drag them down. And I tend to get along with a lot of people that aren't Christian, so I really don't think it affects the way I approach business or music. And I think the final thought on that is, my favorite scripture, Philippians 2:12, where it says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. So I really always think that that's a personal thing for people. It is between them and God, and they should really seek that out first. Look inside yourself and always be sure that you're seeking God. And and other people have their own path, and a lot of times you just got to let them go down that path. I mean, you can't control other people, or you can try to intervene and just be there for them, like Christ was, for people in need. So that's so yeah, I'd say I'm more spiritual than I would consider myself religious. And I do like the word faith-based. Hopefully that that doesn't become too much of a buzzword and lose its meaning over the years either, but might happen.
All right, all right. So tell us a bit about the latest Mangled Carpenter project you're working on, or just in general projects you're working on, and
Okay.
Promoting. What are I know that you did the Christmas EP.
Yeah.
and you have a new single that you just released.
Yep. Yeah, we recorded 5-song EP around over Christmas that has some great songs that meant a lot to me growing up. I mean, I want to do something heavy, and one of the things I always want to do was a heavy Jingle Bells song, so did that one, slashing through the snow. And then we did one of my favorites when I was a kid, favorite movies when I was a kid was Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. And it had this cool song in it where these guys from River Bottom had this bear, and his name was Chuck, and he talked like this. Look at the birds up in the trees. I'm like, yeah, man, this guy's like death metal. Man, I'd love to do this song heavy one day. And I just decided to do it. So that's what River Bottom Nightmare Band was. That's the title. And one of my favorite stop motion films is A Nightmare Before Christmas. And I did the song What's This when Jack Skellington goes to the Christmas town and is wondering what all this shiny stuff is when he decides he's going to steal somebody else's holiday. And you start to realize that Jack, the character, is a bit of a narcissist because he's like already got his own holiday and he wants to take somebody else's. But I just love that song. And I remember thinking, okay, I want to do this What's This song. And I know that Marilyn Manson had covered one of the songs from that movie too, but I wanted to pick something that was different, and I didn't know what I was getting into, because What's This, Danny Elfman, who wrote it, he's just this brilliant composer, and I'm like sitting there listening. I'm like, how am I gonna do the drums, or how are we gonna do the guitar? And I'm like, I know that John 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 John. I'm like, I could get that part down. But it really took a while because it's like so intricate. And the hardest part was the lyrics development, because in musicals, the lyrics are always kind of really all over the place, but they fit. And it was like trying to fit all the lyrics in, and it was a big challenge, but I think it turned out cool. I really liked how it turned out. And then we did God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. I think that one charted for a while on Christian radio through Hog Out Records, and which is the label we're on, and sub record label to Rottweiler Records. And then see the other song that we did on that one. What was the final song? I can't remember. There was 5 though. And then the newest album that we finished before the EP, I actually decided to drop the EP at the last minute. I think I recorded, the guitar and vocals all within like a few weeks, and we hammered that out in like a month. And I was like, I wanted to get one song out for Christmas, and then ended up doing 5. So that worked out. And then starting last April, I started writing the guitar and lyrics and everything for the Mangled Carpenter first debut album coming up, with 11 songs called Under the Shadow. And we've already released one single called Clawing the Ark, about the visuals of people in the water during the flood and how brutal that must have been. And that visual always kind of stuck in my mind as how that must have went down, and the fear and things like that. And even though we do focus on, more of the kind of like brutal, or some people would say violent, or not so positive parts of the Bible, all the songs are biblical based, but they also, every song and story always ends in hope. And I think that's what Mangled Carpenter is all about, that even though there's bad things that happen, or things that aren't, as great, there's always hope, and even in Clawing the Ark, that it's a brutal story of flooding and destruction of people, and, but Noah and his family got on the ark, and the hope behind it is that God made a covenant, not to destroy the world again. So there's always hope at the end of tragedy. And so we're excited about that. And yes, that single's out now, and we've got a couple more singles that should be coming out pretty soon. Our record label releases D45s, digital 45s, kind of like those old singles that people used to release on vinyl. There'd be an A side, and then there'd be a B side. So we got one of those coming up soon. And then hopefully in a timely manner, our album will release.
Great. All right. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Just appreciate the opportunity to speak about the project of Mangled Carpenter and myself, and anybody can follow us on social media. We're at Mangled Carpenter at most pages, Facebook and Instagram. We're at Mangled Songs on Twitter. And people that want to chat with me, I'm always available. I like discussing, anything with people. If they want to discuss lyrics or songs, song approach, what Mangled Carpenter is all about, they can contact me at Seth Metoyer on any social media platform. And I just, hope people enjoy, 11 songs of some heavy, faith-based music.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and look forward to hearing the new stuff.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for having me, Eric.
Take care.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is Seth Metoyer from Mangled Carpenter, and I want to thank you for checking out my interview, and also for listening to our newest single, The Hanging of Judas, which we just dropped the visualizer for. Basically, I wanted to talk about the history of the song and how it was developed, and it's just basically the story of the betrayal of Judas. The Gospel of Matthew in 26:15 states that Judas committed the betrayal in exchange for 30 pieces of silver. John 13:27 suggests that he was also possessed by Satan. Quote, "As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered into him. So Jesus told him, quote, 'What you are about to do quickly.'" In Matthew 27:1-10, after learning that Jesus was to be crucified, Judas attempted to return the money he had been paid for his betrayal to the chief priests, and then committed suicide by hanging. The priests used the money to buy a field to bury strangers in, which was called the Field of Blood, because it had been bought with blood money. The book of Acts 1:18 quotes Peter as saying that Judas, quote, "fell headlong, burst asunder in the midst, and all his bowels gushed out." Judas' place among the 12 apostles was later filled by Matthias. So there you have it. That's the background on the story of the hanging of Judas, biblically based, and it's a brutal song and brutal topic. So anyways, I hope you enjoy it. Turn it up, crank it, and enjoy. Thanks for listening.